Hello, everyone. Welcome to the special edition of The Final Bar. I'm Dave Keller here at StockCharts.com. This is part 2 of our top 10 stocks to watch in July of 2023. If you missed part 1, watch that one first. Go back because I shared my first 5 picks 10 through 6. Today, we have Grayson Roze from StockCharts joining us to walk us through the remainder of the top 10. 5, 4, 3, 2 to get us all the way to the top stock number 1 to watch in July of 2023. Take it away, Grayson.
So my top 5 stocks to watch for the month of July. What an awesome question. What a fun topic. You know, me as a trader, as an investor, I am always looking for stuff that is out there, that is setting up, keeping those watch lists active. So this is going to be a fun one. Now, the other thing that's going to make this fun right off the bat, before we dive into those 5 stocks, I want to let you know I am using our brand new StockCharts 3 Workbench technology preview. So as you might have heard, we recently launched a major site-wide product release. We rolled out new tools and features in pretty much every corner of the StockCharts website. And on top of those changes, we've also brought out a couple of technology previews of things that we're still working on, kind of a beta release, if you will, an early beta. But today, the fun part is that I'm going to take that new StockCharts Workbench, the sort of platform that surrounds StockCharts, show you that technology preview as we go through these 5 stocks. So you are going to see this in action, and if you want to try it out for yourself, you can go to stockcharts.com/preview. That's going to pull up all of those different technology previews that we have, including this new workbench. So we'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to know what you think. I'm having a blast playing around with this platform, and it's only going to keep getting better from here. So that is my first thing right off the bat. Now, my second thing, I kind of want to talk about the 5 charts that you are going to see. We here at StockCharts, Dave Keller, myself, and all of our other contributors, we like to pride ourselves on being consistent, having an approach, having a specific routine, having a set of criteria that we like to follow. I am no different. So the charts that you are going to see today, all 5 of the stocks that are on my list, they are going to look pretty dang similar. Now, the reason for that is that I have consistent criteria. I use the same kind of approach, the same kind of technical setups are what I look for, because I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel with every single trade that I put on. I don't want some that are coming off of lows and some that are trading up at highs and some that are going through consolidation periods. I want to trade the same kinds of setups. I want to find setups that I can manage risk against, levels that I can manage risk against. I'm in particular looking for relative strength. I want to find things that are outperforming the market. These are a couple of the things that we've actually touched on this show over the last couple of weeks, couple of months, as I've been on here with Dave. So the charts that you're going to see, if you find yourself getting to number 1 and you say, that looks a lot like number 5, well, there is a reason behind that, and that is that I have a consistent approach to the setups I like to follow. So with some of that little background out of the way, I say we jump over to the site and take a look at my 5 stocks to watch for the month of July. So first up, we've got a transportation technology name. I never really know what to think about Uber here because it really is kind of a blend of so many different things. They're in the technology space, obviously, as a major, app-driven kind of technology provider, but also clearly in discretionary and transportation, almost an industrial name in a way. They're in food now with all the delivery and all the other things that they are doing. But for us as technicians, we're not focused as much on that kind of thing. We are focused on what's happening in that price action, what's happening on the chart. So here on our new StockCharts Workbench page, you can actually see I've got my 5 stocks, and number 5 on the list is going to be Uber. I've actually selected that from that menu up there. I love what I'm seeing here from Uber. This is a stock that's actually coming out of a bit of a basing period, sort of entering, if you think about stage analysis, kind of that classic Weinstein stage analysis, this is looking like it's starting to come out of a stage 1 base into a new stage 2 uptrend. I love to see us here breaking out above some key levels. In particular, I love to see that relative strength at the top of this chart. So for me, when I talk about relative strength, I measure everything against VTI. You can actually see that on this chart. It says Vanguard Total Stock Market. VTI is the Vanguard Total Index. Represents the total investable landscape out there in the U.S. All those stocks combined into one ETF. The key for me is that that's actually an ETF I hold in a lot of my long-term accounts, right? I want to be exposed to the market and sort of have that miracle of compounding work for me over a long period of time. It's really easy to go out and buy VTI. So if I'm going to take on the added risk of buying an individual stock, I want to make sure that it is outperforming the total market. Because if it's underperforming, well, I might as well just take that capital and put it to work in VTI instead. So my benchmark for everything, my sort of relative strength benchmark is VTI. And you'll see this up at the top of all these charts, this relative strength line. The key is that if this line is moving to the upside, that means that this name is outperforming the total stock market. We want to find things that are outperforming the market. So I do love to see this change in character. You can actually see on the left side of this chart, we had Uber, right, coming off of those highs, moving down in a downtrend, underperformed the market as well, started to chop around in this consolidation phase, and is now breaking out to the upside. And it's doing that not just on price alone, but also by outperforming the market on the way up. So you can see that this relative strength line has been moving up. I love to see that. I also love to see the change in character on these moving averages. So a couple of key ones that I follow on my charts, the 50-day simple, the 100-day simple, and the 200-day simple. You can see that not only have these kind of reversed, and we've got the 50 above the 100, above the 200, a change in character from what we see on the left side of the chart, but we've also seen these start to turn upwards. We can see that all three of these moving averages are actually moving to the upside in addition to price itself. Now, the other interesting thing about this chart, if we actually use one of the very cool new features of this Sharp Charts workbench, we're going to do this a couple times today. I've set these style buttons up with a couple of the different chart styles that I like to use in my account. Chart styles are basically chart templates. So you can see if I hover over any of these buttons, you can actually see what those sort of names of those styles are. If we jump this out to a longer term weekly chart, this is about a 7.5-year weekly chart. Uber hasn't actually even been public that long. But we can see over the long term that some interesting things are happening here in Uber over the longer term kind of weekly perspective. So I like to blend these time frames. We talked about that somewhat recently on the show. When we do step back to that kind of longer term look at Uber, we can see that this is trying to run up against some prior resistance, really kind of from that IPO. We're getting above that, sort of up to that $45 mark that was very, very crucial around the time when Uber went public. Now, it came off of those levels, finally recovered. So we do have some overhead resistance up to about 64 on this name. But I do love to see this. If we can get a strong move, continued relative strength, continued outperformance from Uber, if we can see this name continue to outperform in the month of July, maybe everyone is out there moving around, getting rides out there, visiting their friends for the summer. They're taking Ubers all over the place, leaving the house after the world starts to open up here a little bit more coming out of the pandemic. Hopefully we see Uber start to continue to climb through that kind of $45 range and eventually take out those all-time highs around the 64 level. So Uber is my fifth name to watch here. Number 5 on my list. I would love to see the relative strength continue. We can see that actually since it's gone public, it has been a long-term underperformer. That's one of the things that gives me a little bit of hesitation here on Uber. But again, if we can break above some of these key levels, some prior resistance here in Uber from that IPO, I think that this could be definitely one to watch in July and beyond. So that is my fifth name, our starting place for today. Now we're going to actually open up this menu up at the top. One of the things I am loving about this new workbench, this technology preview that we've got here, you can select any of the chart lists from your account with this menu on the left, and then any of the charts within from the menu on the right. This is really, really nice if you've got all of your, your saved charts, you're keeping track of those watch lists, your portfolio, those kinds of things. You can quickly navigate through these lists, either using the arrow keys or using these menus. So I'm actually previewing there. You can see all of my 5 names. I just gave away a little bit, but you can also flip through these charts using these little buttons. So a couple of really cool features here with those style buttons, and then also these menus and the arrow keys to flip through charts. So if we jump back, we're going to go backwards here since we're going from 5 up to 1. We're going to take a look at my next chart to watch for the month of July. That is going to be NVR. This is a home construction name. Consumer discretionary, a sector that has been gaining a lot of strength, was a bit beaten down in 2022, one of the sort of more beaten down corners of the market. But home construction, a group within that consumer discretionary sector, an industry group that has been absolutely flying. We've seen a lot of those home construction, home builder ETFs making new highs. This is a group that is getting a lot of attention right now. And I love to see names from that, from a group that is strong, from a sector that's strong, from an industry group that is strong. When you see that kind of rising tide lifting all those boats, that is an incredible sign of strength. So home construction, definitely an area of the market, a corner of the market that has been coming across my watch list quite a lot. And NVR is one of those names that has really been moving strongly to the upside and is continuing to look pretty attractive here going into the month of July. So once again, you can see that we have some beautiful relative strength coming out of NVR. This line, this relative strength line against VTI, just like we were looking at with Uber, continuing to move up and actually starting to make some new swing highs there on that relative strength line. I love this this relative strength feature, the way that you can set it up here in StockCharts, because again, we can think about relative strength the same way that we think about price, right? We can actually add moving averages to it. We can think about new highs, new lows. Is price relative making new 3-month highs, 6-month highs, those kinds of things. So to see this relative strength line actually kind of breaking out to some new highs here, testing those new highs in 2023, I love to see that continuing to outperform the total market. Now, on price itself, this breakout is a little bit more stretched than I would like, but we're going to flip over to the weekly and show you that view in just a second. That'll add a little bit more context to this chart. Again, kind of bringing in those multiple time frames, different perspectives. Once again, though, just like Uber, I love to see these moving averages having sort of changed character. We've got them in the right order. We've got the 50 above the 100, above the 200, and all moving up. I love to see that some trend indicators, intermediate to long-term, across those different timeframes. Those trend indicators are pointing up. So I love to see that. And of course, price above all of those moving averages as well. So you can see that I've sort of drawn some of those horizontal levels that were ones to watch. If I use this inspect tool, which you can turn on, by the way, up here using this little checkbox, the little crosshairs that you're seeing floating around those charts, we could have drawn another line up here. We did consolidate around that 59.80 level here in NVR. We've made another breakout above that. But again, if we add a little more context to this chart, let's look at that 7.5 year, went to the longer term, 7.5 year weekly chart. We can see that some fascinating things are happening here with NVR. Not only have we made the breakout on price, we can see that that's actually not too stretched, not quite as stretched as it looked on that previous chart. When we add a little bit more kind of long-term context to this, we can see that this move might be just getting going. But on top of that, we can also see that price relative strength, breaking out to multi-year highs, really taking out some highs from 2017, late 2017. So I love to see this. The move against the total market might just be getting going. When you've got group strength as well, that home construction, home builders industry group has been incredibly strong. There's a lot to love on this NVR chart. And if we kind of think about this, right, taking those stairs higher, you can draw some of those horizontal lines along these charts. That's why I love support and resistance levels. If we draw those, back from 2017 to 2019, we can see that this chart went higher above that breakout level. Did get hit during the COVID pandemic. But if we kind of look beyond that, we can see that this made a nice breakout and made a strong run to the upside. Now, again, within that broader uptrend, we've consolidated. We're starting to take out the top of that range. So this is definitely one that is on my list that I think is worth watching here. Breaking out to new highs on price relative, breaking out to new highs on price itself as well. So we're going to move on to our third chart. A little bit of a different spin on that home construction group. This is an industrial name in the building materials space. TopBuild, BLD is the ticker. A very similar looking chart. Again, these are the kinds of things that I am scanning for and looking for. The scans that I run, the criteria that I like to filter for are new highs across different time frames. All-time highs, 52-week highs, 9-month, 6-month, and 3-month highs. I love to run my scans for that kind of criteria and then just filter through those charts, use some different time frames to see which ones are really set up the best. BLD, another name that I think makes a ton of sense here, moving into the month of July, again, with the tailwind of that home construction, home building space getting a lot of attention right now. This is another group that has been seeing quite the pickup. BLD, a name that has been heavily outperforming the market really since November. We can see kind of coming off those lows, but had been in a bit of a consolidation phase. We tested the sort of 220, 230 range a couple of times. I love to see this pattern. We're chopping around in that base. We move towards the upside of it. We test it a couple of times. We have a couple of shakeouts on the way up, but now we're seeing BLD start to break out above those key levels and make that move higher while outperforming the market as well. And this is some very, very strong relative strength. This is consistent outperformance. This move, again, is a little bit stretched to me. So I might be watching this one for a bit of a pullback, maybe add the 20-day moving average on there, see if we can pull back to the 20, hold that, and bounce. That might be a little bit better entry from a risk-reward standpoint. But I do love to see what we got going on here for BLD overall. This is a name that has definitely been attractive, moving higher, making those breakouts. Again, we've got those moving averages having kind of changed character. They're set up not only in the right order, but in the right direction. They are all moving higher with price above those as well. And we've had a couple of big volume days on here as well. So that's another thing that I do like to keep an eye on. Not really a primary filter for me, but having those volume bars on there and seeing what's happening on specific days, another key indicator. Now, again, we can step back to that longer-term weekly chart and get a little bit more context here in BLD. We can see that we are in a longer-term uptrend. BLD has been moving higher, broadly speaking, over the last 7.5 years, a little bit of a step back to that longer-term view. And on top of that, we've got this breaking out to new price relative highs. Again, kind of similar to what we were looking at with NVR. So I love to see this across two perspectives. We're set up well on the daily. We're set up well on the weekly. We do have a little bit of overhead supply up to that kind of 284 range. But this is kind of that first level breakout that I would watch around that kind of 235 level. That was kind of my initial look at this chart when it comes across my radar. Now I'm watching for some consolidation continuing within that uptrend on the daily. And I'm keeping an eye on that weekly as well. But these are the kinds of names that I like to follow. I like to find things that are in those longer term uptrends. They go through these periods of consolidation where buyers and sellers kind of digest those gains. And then they start to move higher without, out of some of those ranges. That's exactly what we're seeing here in BLD. So this is another name that has come across my screen that has a lot to love about it here on the weekly and on the daily. Again, watch that relative strength. If this can continue to make that move higher, this could be a strong outperformer. Again, backed by some of that strength that we're seeing, a lot of strength that we're seeing out of that home construction space. This is getting to pick up from that. We're going to move on to our second chart to watch in the month of July. Number 2 is actually going to be stepping out of those kind of industrial spaces, out of consumer discretionary. We're jumping into technology here with Fortinet. This is a cybersecurity name. That space has been a really interesting one to watch in the last couple of years. A big beneficiary during the pandemic. We saw cybersecurity as a whole, as a group, get a lot of attention. A very beaten down space, though. What we saw in 2022 was a huge hit to cybersecurity. A lot of growth names in that space, and so a lot of those, obviously, with what was going on with the drawdowns we saw in 2022. We saw a lot of those cybersecurity names get hit very, very hard. The reason that Fortinet is interesting to me is twofold. We're going to take a look at it again on multiple timeframes. This is one of the cybersecurity names that held up much better than the rest of the pack. Now, that doesn't mean it didn't take a hit, doesn't mean it didn't have some big drawdowns, but on a relative basis, sort of against its brothers and sisters, against its peers in that cybersecurity space, this is actually one that's held up quite well. When we go through periods of pain, those can be interesting indicators to us. When we get to the other side of that, the grass is a little bit greener. We start to look towards brighter pastures. When we see names that have actually held up well during those periods of pain, that can be an interesting indicator of kind of what's going to lead coming out of it. So Fortinet is a really, really interesting one to watch, sort of theoretically, in addition to just observationally what's happening on these price charts. So again, on this daily chart, quite a bit more choppy than some of those others that we've looked at. This has really been consolidating for quite a while, but we are breaking out of the top of that range. Again, if we kind of hover this inspect tool across the top of this chart, we can see that kind of 70, low 70s, maybe 71, 72 area, everything up to that level was quite important for Fortinet. But we put in some solid support down kind of in those high 40s, right? This is really a nice trading range that we've been chopping around in. Now we're starting to break to the upside. And again, we're doing that on some great outperformance. Fortinet here stepping in and outperforming the total market. I would love to see this be a little bit stronger, but still on its way up. This thing is outperforming the market, and those are the types of things that I like to see. So we are consolidating a little bit, but yet right at the top of that range. But that can actually be a very, very good thing. It tells us that buyers and sellers really are kind of digesting the top of that range. And if we get a nice solid breakout through it, that thing might be poised to run much, much higher. So here's Fortinet on the daily. And once again, we've got that 50-day, 100-day, 200-day looking prime in the right order, all moving higher. I love to see that with price trading above it as well. But as I mentioned, if we step back to that kind of longer term view, we can see that this is a name that is in a broader uptrend, has been moving higher for quite some time, has outperformed the market by a heavy, heavy margin, 398% over the last 7.5 years. A big, big outperformance there from Fortinet. And most importantly to me, over the last kind of year and a half, this thing has been consolidating up near those all-time highs, while the market and, most importantly, growth stocks and cybersecurity stocks have been getting absolutely slammed. So to see Fortinet actually making this move higher while the rest of its space was really getting hit pretty aggressively, this is a thing of beauty to me. These are the kinds of setups that I like to look for. So we can take advantage of these sort of long-term trends out there in the market, take advantage of those long-term tailwinds, and potentially grab this thing as it's coming out of that period of consolidation that we've seen for the last kind of year and a half. Again, outperforming the market, making that breakout, moving averages in the right order. This thing across multiple time frames looks very, very strong to me. So Fortinet is definitely one to watch for me in the month of July. Now we're going to move on to our final stock to watch in the month of July, and that is going to be Applied Materials. This is a semiconductor name, one of the larger out there, not the largest, because of course we got things like NVIDIA up near $1 trillion valuation. But Applied Material, as you can see up here in that full quote, you can turn that on in your charts. Actually, very, very cool. I'll highlight this really quickly. Here in that new workbench, you can access chart settings right up from the top of the screen if you want to sort of manipulate things on the fly. In addition to all the settings you can customize at the bottom, you can also change things up at the top. So if you don't have that full quote turned on your charts, that's going to add that little kind of bar up at the top with all those additional details. I love to leave that on my charts. I think it is incredibly helpful for things just like this. You know, if you're wondering what's the market cap of Applied Materials, how big is this company, you can quickly see, okay, this is a $123 billion company. This is a very, very large name. So a little bit of a tip there, that full quote. If you're not using that feature on Sharp Charts or ACP, one to try out. But Applied Materials, there is a lot to love on this name as well. This is kind of similar to what we've been seeing with those home construction names. You know, we talked about that group strength. We talked about the tailwind that can provide, pushing things higher. When you see the entire space moving higher, it's a sign of strength and confidence from buyers in that group, in that whole space. We're seeing a lot of that out of semiconductors right now. Another space that has been heavily beaten down, or had been heavily beaten down in 2022, but we've seen semiconductors as a whole, as a big group, as an industry group, semiconductors have really, really recovered quite beautifully this year. We've seen some huge moves out of that space. Obviously, things like NVIDIA, but really it's been shared among a lot of the brothers and sisters there in the group. We've seen a ton of semiconductor names heavily outperforming the market this year. So that space has been getting a ton of attention. I like to find those groups that are working, and I like to find individual names from within. So in my case, things like semiconductors absolutely flying off the shelves, all these different semiconductors names, I'm going to look for breakouts in that space, and Applied Materials is a beauty of one that is setting up right here. Had a huge day as of the recording that we're doing right now, up almost 5% here on this Tuesday, the 27th, but just starting that breakout. And I think this really could have a lot more room to run above here. Again, we've seen a change in character in this stock. We've seen a downtrend that has turned into a basing pattern, a consolidation pattern, and now we are starting to move up above that. Still has a lot of work to do, still has a lot of proving to do, but this is a great, great start. And I do love to see this consolidating a bit around that kind of key level. Now, I've drawn that key support and resistance level around 140 on this name on the adjusted chart. And the fact that we've pushed up to there and then actually pulled back, pushed up, pulled back, consolidated a little bit around that level. And now we're just starting to make a go through it with a lot of confidence and a nice little above average volume. Would love to see it be a little bit stronger, but the fact that we've consolidated around that breakout level makes me a lot more confident in this. If we can see buyers continue to push this thing higher, that tells me that there is a lot of strength in that breakout. There's a lot of kind of truth in that breakout. Now, once again, we've got a name that is outperforming the market. Over the longer term, this is a 1.5-year chart, just has barely outperformed the market. But again, you can see that change in character, right? We can see that relative strength line had been coming down on the left-hand side of this chart. We were in a bit of a downtrend. We started to consolidate. We started to move higher, and this thing has been outperforming the market now really since kind of October, mid-October, I would say, of last year. So we're starting to make that breakout. We're outperforming the market. We've got our moving averages, again, in the right order, all moving up together in addition to price. We've got some good volume characteristics. But then again, once we take a look at this on the weekly, if we jump back over to that 7.5-year chart, we can see that there's, again, a lot to love on this chart. We're in a longer-term uptrend here for Applied Materials. We're breaking out to new highs, starting to make that breakout on its way up to breaking out to new highs on price relative against the total market. And we can see that we're kind of doing that same stair-step pattern, right? So in that long-term uptrend, we've moved higher. We've consolidated there from about 2017 to 2020. We made the move higher. We consolidated again. And now we're getting ready potentially for another run here in Applied Materials. These are the kinds of things that I love to find. When you can see those breakouts across multiple timeframes backed by relative strength, that is what I am going to look for. Now, we can even jump this thing out to a longer term. This is a 15-year chart now, and we can see that stair-step pattern much more clearly. So over the last 15 years, this thing has been in a strong uptrend, has outperformed the market by about 125%. For a $125 billion company, that is a thing of beauty. So lots to love on multiple timeframes here for Applied Materials. Again, on kind of that longer-term weekly chart, the ultra-long-term weekly chart, and, of course, on that daily chart as well. I love what I'm seeing here for Applied Materials. So that's going to be my #1 stock to watch for July, in addition to that space. The other thing that you might pick up on here is I'm watching a couple of key spaces here in the month of July. Things like semiconductors. We'll look to see if we can continue to get strength out of that group. Home builders, home construction, building materials, some of that industrial space, definitely one that I am watching. We'll see if the strength in consumer discretionary can continue. Again, more of an offensive corner of the market. If we are going to see us push higher into a new bull market that's going to keep running up, we want to see things that are offensive, outperforming. So things like consumer discretionary, we want to see those sectors continue to lead. And then groups like cybersecurity, are we going to see that return to growth? Names like Fortinet continue to move higher. Those are some of the questions that I'm asking myself, some of the names that I am finding. And I got to say, some of those setups that look the most attractive to me at the current moment, they're happening in some of those more offensive corners of the market. So let's recap really quickly my 5 stocks to watch in the month of July. At number 5, we had Uber. At number 4, we had NVR. At number 3, we had TopBuild, BLD. At number 2, we had Fortinet, that cybersecurity name, FTNT. And at number 1, Applied Materials, AMAT, that strong semiconductor name, that $125 billion large cap name. We'll see if that can continue to move higher in the month of July. Those are my 5 stocks to watch, 5 that have come across my screens that I'm keeping a close eye on. So what are yours? What are you watching in the month of July? Maybe comment below. Let us know what you're watching. Share a chart with your fellow YouTube followers here, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching here on StockCharts TV.